I don't have anything. 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 I just don't have anything. I don't have anything. You don't have anything. You just don't have anything. Don't have anything. So I don't have anything.
And if you are an individual, a foreign national who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal, and so therefore you are subject to deportation.
And we finally, after 4 years of chaos and mayhem and apologizing for America, have a president again in the Oval Office who is standing up for America. And this is what it looks like when you have a leader of our great nation who uses the leverage of the United States, who understands that since our nation's founding, we have been viewed as that shining light on the hill. We have been viewed, rightfully so, as the best, proudest country in the world.
Enter the new political period when common sense is propelling the country ahead. For the previous 4 years, the press secretary was just a DEI appointee, but in a matter of weeks, Karoline Leavitt, the new Trump press secretary, has taken over. Karine Jean-Pierre before the media. This video compiles all of the instances in which Karoline Leavitt interrupted Karine Jean-Pierre during their live White House press briefings. Beginning with their very first one, note how they emphasized the fact that she was the first black woman, the first immigrant, and the first openly gay woman to hold the position of White House press secretary.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. I know that was a long 2 minutes. I apologize. Okay, let's get started. So before we start the briefing, I want to take a moment to recognize the lives lost and forever changed in Buffalo. Former Buffalo Police Lieutenant Aaron Salter, 55, is a hero, a security guard who engaged a suspect to save lives and was killed in the process. Ruth Whitfield, 86, was mother of Buffalo's retired fire commissioner, Garnell W. Whitfield. Ruth was the rock of the family.
I apologize, but this is complete nonsense and a clear example of a real DEI hire. I must ask, though, if she genuinely thinks that saying all of this will help her look good in her press secretary debut. If so, she ought to have started off by saying something along these lines.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments.
That's just what we require. Common sense. If you listen closely, you'll see a noticeable shift in the way she speaks with confidence about what we all want to hear. She is not only talking, she is also making commitments that she truly believes in.
Who is delivering on the promises he made to the American people, and who speaks the truth. So I'm so humbled by the outpouring of support I've heard from people across the country saying, we're doing such a great job at the White House. Well, it's easy to do a good job when you are acting on common sense and you're speaking the truth. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing every single day.
This is the exact result of working with someone who has common sense, but Karine isn't showing it. Just look at Jean-Pierre's attempts to clarify why the former president and the press were unable to communicate.
The White House released a 6-page summary back in February. I don't think that was a full accounting necessarily. And Dr. O'Connor in that memo described the president as, quote, a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male who remains fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. I think that is clearly not what the majority of Americans are seeing. And we have a new poll from CBS News that says 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word?
So a couple of things, and I want to say the president is feeling better, and you saw him last night, you saw him today, but he does indeed still have a cold. Look, I want to be very sensitive here, and I think it is important to be sensitive here. We understand how the American people are feeling. We get it. We do. And
As we all know, for them, everything boils down to emotion, gender, and race. That's exactly what we witnessed here. Rather than responding to the question, she sidestepped it with an emotional response. Now, watch as a reporter asks her to get Biden to answer their questions because it's clear that she doesn't really understand what she's talking about.
I appreciate the request. Thank you for the request. The president, as you know, again, I appreciate the question and I get it, and the president understands. You guys want to ask him questions and have the opportunity for him to answer your questions. I do want to say, this is a president that has done more in the first 2.5 years when it comes to the economy, when it comes to really giving the American people a little bit of breathing room than any other president.
6. Did you notice how she abruptly changed the subject? She reminded me of Claw Harris, and not only did she completely sidestep the question, but she didn't even attempt to reroute it. Instead, she launched into a discussion about the economy. When the same question was asked again, she became blatantly haughty. Just look at her face.
Secondly, the president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and the decision-making of why the president decided to invite.
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors?
Well, a couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. If you look at past presidents, I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
My. Was there ever a threshold for qualifications for press secretaries? This chick isn't even close to meeting the requirements.
Could it answer the question? I mean, kind of an unreasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of coercive conversation for business dealing by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
However, this isn't the first time she has sidestepped a question. Once more, she did so when a Fox News reporter asked her a straightforward question. What's even more absurd is that she wasn't even close to being ready to respond, yet she lied in front of us.
Thanks, Karine. So, what do you call it here at the White House when 10,000 people illegally cross the border in a single day?
So what do you call it, Peter, when GOP puts forth a wait, no, you can't.
Karine?
I'm answering. Okay, we're gonna move
You're
on.
answering a question with a question? Okay.
No. We're moving on.
Karine,
We're moving.
please.
In the back.
Now, you said you were stopping the flow of the border.
No. I tried to
10,000
answer. Peter, I
Okay.
tried to answer the question. You stopped me. Let's go. Okay, so
Listen to what Greg has to say about all the cover-ups she's been doing for Joe Biden. Let's be honest. Did you actually see her attempt to respond to the question, or did I miss something?
Jean-Pierre is rejecting claims that the White House staff treats Joe Biden like a baby. In fact, she says Joe is reading at a third grade level and can walk several steps without falling down. When asked about a stain on her shirt, she said Joe spit up on her while burping him.
Additionally, did you know that she acknowledged that she frequently has no idea what she's talking about?
sometimes I get it wrong. At least I admit that. And sometimes I don't have the information. And I will always admit that. But I do take offense to what was just happening at the beginning of this briefing. It's not okay.
Karine, impoverished. You won't believe how many times she said, "I don't know." Jean was on the verge of tears. However, before we play the film, consider how Karoline was Jean-Pierre's exact opposite, and keep in mind that the media won't show you this.
And we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal.
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
Now observe as Karoline enthralls the audience with her superb response. It is clear that she is the best person for this position, raising the question of how Jean-Pierre was able to get the job last term.
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore you are subject to deportation.
These are the same media outlets that were silent for 4 years before suddenly coming to life when Trump took office. But Karoline Leavitt didn't stand by and watch those biased CNN reporters. Instead, she continued to hit them harder, with facts. And that's how you answer a question perfectly, with a punch of truth.
Several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
She is quite exceptional, and I would be overjoyed if any socialist or DEI hire could communicate with such fluidity. As evidenced by the way she shredded the former secretary and the entire left-wing media for not speaking the truth. It is extremely difficult for anyone to be this competent, and even those who criticized her and said she got the job because she is a 10 can't compare to her abilities.
Terrorists and cartels and murderers and rapists and American victims that I'm shocked Democrats don't seem to care a lot about. I did fail to mention we had hostages released out of Venezuela. I don't think most Americans, Karoline, even knew about that.
No, they didn't. It happened on Friday afternoon. The legacy media went home, I guess, or they didn't want to report on more good news coming from the Trump administration. But Rick Grinnell went to Venezuela with 2 very clear directives from the President of the United States. Land repatriation flights of illegal Tren de Aragua gang members who have infiltrated our country under the Biden administration. Get them back to Venezuela. Done.
Karoline's delivery is immaculate, demonstrating her intense love for what she does. She confidently answers all questions with knowledge, which makes it even more perplexing that Jean-Pierre appeared to be oblivious to what was going on.
And number 2, return the 6 U.S. hostages who have been held captive in Venezuela and the previous administration never even talked about. Rick Grinnell, on the behalf of President Trump, using President Trump's negotiating leverage, was able to get that done. And then in that same day, we took out ISIS fighters in Somalia. Again, a story that the mainstream media doesn't want to cover. And then Secretary of State Rubio, who's doing a phenomenal job on behalf of President Trump, secured concessions from Panama. They are no longer going to charge U.S. naval ships who go through the canal, and they also have said they are no longer going to be a part of the CCP-led Belt and Road Initiative. So these small wins are racking up for the United States, and the entire world knows that America is back.
If you genuinely think she's the finest, please share your opinions in the comments below. If you liked this video, please remember to subscribe. To see the sharp contrast, observe how the former press secretary struggled, despite having a lengthy career in the White House.